you need to know where you've been, right? And these things are important to being able to figure out where you're going, right? That's why Orwell in his books wrote, "He who controls the past controls the future," right? Or he might have said it differently, but that was the gist of it. Okay, so what I'd like to do with you guys now is I'd like to take you back in time. I would like to use this here book as a time machine and take you back and show you a few things that maybe if you've read it, I mean, I know a lot of people that have not actually read through the whole Bible, which to me is crazy, regardless of, whatever you think about religion, spirituality, etc. Because, I mean, let's face it, an awful lot of people on planet Earth, their life is heavily influenced in one way or another by this book, okay? So it's definitely one of those things you want to read. And I would say the same thing about, many other books, quite frankly. I mean, I've definitely read and studied the Quran and many other things. It's not about what you believe in. It's what would you like to be aware of. And for me, there's almost no limit to that, speaking for myself. In any event, we are going to use, or I am going to use, you can use whatever you want. I am going to use this here King James version. Just a quick aside on old King James, in case people don't know, we're talking about the one son of Mary, Queen of Scots, right? I think it was half-sister, I believe, of Elizabeth I, right? Queen of England. And so this is the King James that we're talking about. And he had people put this together. It is so important for people to understand that there are numerous Bibles, okay? Not only are we talking about a translation from Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic into English or whatever your language is, but we're also talking about numerous people, right? Imperfect men, maybe some women, but probably mostly imperfect men. They get their hands on it and they're doing things. Maybe they're doing the best that they can, literally, and they're inspired by God and guided by God. Or maybe they have an agenda. It's not for me to say. I'm just saying there are multiple versions of the Bible out there. This just so happens to be a translation that was put together in about 1611, I believe. And it's great English. So this is the one that I like. A lot of people really like this one. This is what I got. This is what we're going to rock with. Okay, so let's first have a look at Exodus chapter 18, verse 13. We'll start with verse 13, right? I'm going to read a little bit of this and I'll pull text up. And, if you want to read the whole thing, by all means, get your hands on something and read the whole thing. But I'm just going to drop a few gems that I think will make a lot of sense if you've looked at some of the other videos on the subject of law and, life, right? So Jethro, who is Moses' father-in-law, right? He comes to visit Moses. This is after the whole Egypt bit took place, right? So we're going to move forward to verse 13, right? Chapter 18, verse 13. And it came to pass that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning into the evening. And it goes on to explain what Jethro tells Moses in terms of how he ought to deal with this judging of everything, right? He said, look, you're going to wear yourself out. You do this day in and day out, performing this on your own. Hearken now unto my voice, I will give thee counsel. Okay? Counsel. And so he details what he believes is best for Moses, which pretty much, think about this. This is really outstanding. What form of governance does this sound like? Provide out of all of the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. That sounds like representative government. It almost sounds like a republic. They're not talking about elections or anything like that. We're talking about Moses appointing people. But, what kind of people? Able men that fear God, men of truth, right? So here you have the actual king of earth and the heavens and everything, the creator of the universe, giving information, direction to somebody, saying, yeah, break it up. Don't try to judge everything yourself. And so what does this look like? Well, this looks an awful lot like what we're supposed to have in America. You've got your county level stuff. Okay, and then of course within that you might have a few different towns and villages, and they've got their little town and village level stuff, right? And then from there, right, see what I'm saying? Like growing larger in terms of numbers and geographical area. Why is that? Well, we'll get into that when we get into democracy, which is going to have to be another video. But just a little teaser here. Look at the roots of that word. Democratus. Democracy. Kratos. This is Greek. Demo. Check it out. Or I'll get into it in another video. So, a little bit of insight as far as how to structure your society. All right, now a warning was also given actually in chapter 20 of Exodus. All right, and I'm not talking about the, I'm not talking about like the entire 10 Commandments, but I'm talking about, one specific thing. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of a thing. Just keep that in the back of your mind, all right? And so now we'll move just a little bit further. There's so much in Exodus. To chapter 21. And if we go to, it kind of starts, it's this whole section really, but it kind of starts with verse 12 there. Laws concerning acts of violence. He that smiteth a man so that he die, he shall surely be put to death also. Sounds familiar, right? You go through that. It's very interesting, right? Talks about a bunch of different things, stealing and such. And you get to chapter 22, laws concerning restitution, which is just a longer, more syllable way of saying what? Remedy, right? We were just talking about, what happens if you cause harm. Now we're talking about making remedy. If a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep, right? There's this punishment, okay? Which is obviously, none of this is to say that we need to be doing all of this stuff the same way today. It's just to say that these concepts, this is ancient stuff, and people had different ways of looking at it and formulating it, but the principles remain the same. They didn't need any giant top-down government false god. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let's move forward now. So let's make that connection there with the graven images and the likeness, all right? So now we're going to move forward. We're going to go to Deuteronomy. While I'm finding Deuteronomy here, let me just point out, so what is Exodus? What is Exodus really talking about? Well, Exodus really is the story of, it details the creation of a people, a law, a lifestyle, okay? You might even call it the organization of a state, except for it's not a state the way that we think of a state nowadays. But that's what you've got going on in Exodus. That's what you've got going on in Exodus. You have God, and then through Moses, right? This is all ostensibly, right? I wasn't there, but that's what you have going on. Is there he's laying out how you're going to structure this whole thing, right? In contrast with what? So let's have a look at Deuteronomy 1. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 1. We're going to start this off with verse 16. I charge your judges at the time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren and judge righteously. Charging. When you charge something, right? It now, right, interacts and reacts with other things, charge particle, right? When you get charged, you now have to deal with the charges that have been put on you. Well, the Creator put charges on these judges, right? So this is a lot of the same language. It's one of the reasons why people like this King James Version, because the language, it definitely changes, no doubt about it. So moving on to 17 now, the very next verse. This is huge. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment. Right, so when making judgment, I'll read it again. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. So what does he say? What's being said there? What do you mean? Don't respect persons, but hear the small as well as the great. Huh? Isn't that a contradiction? You just said, yeah. Y'all know at this point, persons. What's being said? Don't respect their persona. He might sometimes act as this, and he might sometimes act as that. You hear the small and the great equally, because they are both men or women in the sight of the Creator. Don't respect persons. Okay? Trying to tell you. So if we move along now, Deuteronomy chapter 4, we're looking at verse 15, and I just love this one. It kind of starts at 15. This is about idolatry, right? And you can read the whole thing. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude, right? Think of similarity, right? Like a fake thing. Ye see no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of any male or female, the likeness of any beast, the likeness of anything. Can you think of any graven images or likenesses that have been made and placed before us almost as gods? Okay, so we're going further down now. Okay, same thing, chapter 4 of Deuteronomy. Chapter 4, verse 25. When thou shalt beget children and children's children, and ye shall have remained long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image, or the likeness of any thing, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord. There ye shall serve gods, the work of men's hands. Wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. It's very interesting, no? That whole section is worth reading. I take it as a warning against creating pretty much exactly what has been created all around us. This likeness of a creation, this alternative God and set of laws. You know, it have a read, see what you think, okay? Now, I'd like to sort of drop a little teaser here because I want to get into something that I find very, very interesting, but it's a totally separate subject. But I just want to throw this out there. And I know some of y'all are hip to some of this stuff, but it's kind of fun to explore it together. And who knows what else we find, and who knows what people following along learn, right? Let's flip forward to Genesis, or actually, backward to Genesis, chapter 6, verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just going to read it one more time. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterwards. It's rather interesting. Can we find anything else about these giants? Well, yes, we can, actually. Numbers, chapter 13, verse 32. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth the inhabitants. And all of the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak. Anak? Anunnaki? I mean, what are we saying here? I don't know. Remember, these are translations. I'm not quite sure what I'm reading here. But I did read very clearly that, according to this translation to English, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so we were in their sight. Whoa. I mean, certainly an exaggeration. Probably not literally like grasshoppers. But that's quite a statement. That's mighty interesting. Maybe we should poke into that. So I hope you enjoyed that little foray into where the Bible has some law peppered through it. That was some Old Testament stuff. I want to give you a glimpse of what's actually in the New Testament at some point in time here. But later for that.